is also the Emeritus Professor of Philosophy of Science at University of Malaya. He was formerly Distinguished Professor at Sultan Umar Ali Saifuddin Center for Islamic Studies at the University of Brunei Darussalam, and before that, the Malaysia Chair of Southeast Asian Islam at Prince Talal Al-Walid Center for Muslim-Christian Understanding at Georgetown University. Dr. Bakar is very well known, and he's the author and editor of 40 books and many articles on various aspects of Islamic thought and civilization, and also in relation to interreligious dialogue and also Islamic science and philosophy. I know him for around 40 years now, and I know many students flock from around the world wanting to study with him, and they come to ISTAC just out to study with him in his specialization so that they can learn from him. He's an intellectual activist in interreligious dialogue since 1975, which is 45 years. And he has been named among the 500 most influential Muslims in the world since 2009. His best-selling book is Classification of Knowledge in Islam, which is really sought by many students and scholars around the world. It was first published in 1992 and has been translated into several languages. His latest book is Colonialism in the Malay Archipelago, Civilizational Encounters, which has just been released by the Islamic Book Trust here in Malaysia just a very few months ago. So without further ado and taking more time, I welcome Professor Osman Bakar. Professor Osman, you are welcome.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wa mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very good afternoon or a good day wherever you are right now. Welcome. I want to welcome back Professor Imtiaz because he has been on medical leave. So we miss him for the last few sessions. But Alhamdulillah, today, lecture number 5, I told Brother Imtiaz, Professor Imtiaz, and also Brother Sharan that I will have 2 more lectures, the last 2 lectures, lecture 6 and lecture 7. Lecture 6 will be next month, possibly during the month of Ramadan. The title is Islam and the Meaning of Human Freedom. Islam and the Meaning of Human Freedom. And the last topic, the last lecture, lecture number 7, the title will be Synthesis. That is the main title. The subtitle is The Raison-d'être of Islam. And that will close my 7 lectures. And after that, I really want to concentrate on editing, expanding these lectures so that I will have a book, inshallah, later. Now, I think many of you are fully aware of the saying that Islam is a way of truth, or to emphasize, Islam is the way of truth. Similarly, it is the way of justice, or religion of justice. You want to do religion, Islam, the religion of truth. We shall see later the title, the term religion of truth, Dinul Haq, that is to be found in the Quran itself. And since truth is very closely related to justice, then Islam is also essentially a religion of justice, or the religion of justice. Now, in Islam, the concept of truth, haq, haqqun. It's couched. Yeah, it's couched in the term haqqun. The concept is very, very fundamental for numerous reasons. These reasons include, number one, perhaps the most important reason, the term haqq or al-haqq is directly concerned with God, or directly concerns God. The term directly concerns Allah. One of the divine names is in fact al-haqq, meaning the absolute truth, but it can also be translated as the absolute reality, because truth and reality, haqiqah, sometimes even the haqq has been translated by scholars as the real, al-haqq meaning the real, or reality, al-haqiqah. So the two concepts are very, very closely related. So anyway, Allah is the absolute truth. I remember when I was in the States, studying in the United States, of course, together with Professor Imtiaz. It's not ordinary students, I mean professors. Of course, they did not know Islam, but they were very greatly surprised when they hear the statement that one of the names of God is the absolute truth, because that is seldom mentioned in Christianity, right? But in Islam, it is very, very fundamental. Now, the second reason why the concept is very fundamental to Islam, since God is the absolute truth, but He's also the ultimate source of all other truth. He Himself is the absolute truth, but He is the source of all other truths. Haqq in plural, jama plural is hukuk. The word hukuk meaning truth in plural, truth. Right? But of course, all these other truths other than the absolute truth, they are relative in nature. They are relative in nature when compared with God as al-haqq. And interestingly, the word haqq also means right. Means right. Talk about human right. Right? Human right. The term used in fact for human rights is hukukul insan, human rights. But the point to emphasize here is that you cannot separate truth and right. Right? They are two aspects of the same reality. Right? So and therefore, of course, since we are talking about the relationship between absolute truth and the relative truth, so we want to not to apply to right. If you talk about human rights, then you must also talk about divine rights, right? Which is hukukullah. So some people only talk about hukukul insan, but they never talk about hukukullah. Yeah, the rights of Allah, or divine rights, the rights of God. So in Islam, human rights and divine rights must go together. They cannot be in contradiction. So if people are fighting for some human rights, but those human rights actually are contrary to God's rights, then forget it. So this is very, very important thing. In the history of Islamic civilization, the harmony between the two rights, meaning divine rights and human rights, has been preserved. All right. So this is best illustrated in the history of the Sharia. So in the history of the Sharia, you can see, all right, this ongoing effort to preserve the harmony between divine rights and human rights. All right. In other words, when the fuqaha, when the jurists, the usuliyun, the scholars of the principles of jurisprudence, they want to formulate laws. All right. It's always behind in their mind. There's always that awareness, that consciousness. All right. Now, what are God's rights in this matter? What are our rights? So, for example, when the issue of adat, of customs, has already been resolved in the history of Islamic law, yeah. In other words, adat is accepted as a source of laws, of Sharia law, because there you have that encounter between divine rights and human rights. In a sense, we can speak of the harmony between the revealed tradition, which is in the Quran and the Sunnah, and the human tradition based on the revealed tradition. Certainly, the fuqaha will examine the customs, the adat, whether they're acceptable or not from that. But the idea that you had that harmony between the two. All right. Now, the next point then I would to say that about the idea of God as the absolute truth. All right. If God is the absolute truth and the ultimate source of all other truths that are essentially relative in nature, then this is a very wonderful point, very, very significant point. Today, one of the currents of thought inflicting the minds of a great part of humanity is the so-called relativism. Relativism. All right? The disease, the philosophical disease of relativism. So we have this disease. So some Muslims are also affected by this disease called relativism. What is this disease about? In other words, the belief that everything is relative. There is no such thing as absolute, no such thing as the absolute, nothing. There is no such thing as absoluteness. It's relative. That is relativism. But Islam's answer just now is that God is the absolute truth. All other truths are relative. So that is Islam's answer to the belief in relativism, because besides relative truth, there is the absolute truth, to which relative truths must submit themselves. All right, must be related to them. I always bring this point because this is to me is a kind of logic entertainment. You know, one of the entertainment. The philosophers don't have much entertainment, you know, but they entertain with intellectual jokes. All right, so just to show the dilemma of the relativists, those who believe in relativism, because they say the relativists would make the statement in a very, very categorical way. The quote is, everything is relative. That's what I say. That's why the relativists would say, everything is relative. But are you aware that this very statement, everything is relative, puts the relativist in the dilemma, all right? Put in dilemma, put himself or herself in self-contradiction, all right? Because let's go the mathematician's way now. It says statement, everything is relative. So the statement is either true or not true. All right? You cannot have third alternative. All right? It's either true or not true. But if the statement is true, everything is. All right, let's start with it's not true first. It's not true. All right. If everything is relative, is either absolutely true or relatively true. All right. If that person say it cannot be absolutely true because I don't believe in the absolute, then that person is left only with a second alternative, which is that it is only relatively true. Which means that statement that's making ethics is only relatively true, which means he acknowledged that there are situations, there are occasions, conditions where the statement is not true. So, which means that you can depend that statement. Sorry, you don't see that as a joke. Huh? Now, the other reason why the concept of truth is very fundamental is because it is connected to knowledge. Truth and knowledge are inseparable. In fact, truth and knowledge are two sides of the same coin, two sides of the same epistemological coin. Hakikah, the reality, is outside the mind, in a sense, right? But when the meaning of the reality, which is outside the mind, enters the mind, it will exist in the mind in the form of truth and knowledge. So that's it. As I say, the Quran will say, now the truth has come. Has come where? The truth has come. Of course, the truth has come to our mind, has entered our mind. All right? God cannot enter our mind, but His name can enter the mind. All right? So I hope those who are now who are looking for the divine name, the name really exists now in their mind, inshallah. Now, these are some of the most important reasons, fundamental reasons why the concept of truth is very, very fundamental to Islam. Now, I want to take you now to the Quran, because the Quran will tell us the semantic feel of haqq, of truth. All right, so wide, so all embracing, in a sense, making the concept of truth very fundamental. The word haqq occurs 247 times in the Quran. 247 times, no, just a few times. And then we see another 40 on top of that. We have another 40 occurrences in other various forms, in a form other than haqq. All right, but when we count the triliteral root, there is ha, qaf, haqqa, the non-haqqun. Then we have 287 times the occurrences of truth in the Quran. Well, of course, we don't. I don't have the time to go through all that. But I'm encouraging you, to go and check all the verses of the Quran where the word haq, truth, in one form or another is to be found, and you can see because although sometimes look repetition, but there can never be exactly the same repetition in the Quran. That is very, very important. All right, you have to be very alert, because the context may be different, the aspect discussed is different, but the point is you can look at these verses. All right. So I want to start with first of all this the first occurrences. The first occurrence in the Quran, in the Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 26. Here, that verse is speaking about the truth of similitudes or parables. This masalun, amthal, that's the Quranic word referring to similitudes or parable, perumpamaan. in bahasa Melayu, right? Perumpamaan. So the truth of similitude, in other words, the similitudes are not just metaphorical with no ontological significance. No, that's not the case. All right. The similitudes are perumpamaan, are, that is true, but the similitudes point to certain truths, in the sense that, in the sense of ayat, yeah, the phenomena in the natural world, in the human world. There are so many phenomena, ayatullah, because they point to God, they point to Allah. So in the Quran, God creates so many amsal, similitudes. All right? In fact, the first similitude in the Quran is in Surah Al-Baqarah in verse 19. There, the Quran refers to the similitude of the rain-laden cloud. Rain-laden cloud. أو كصيب من السماء في ظلمة ورعد وبرق. So there is it. You have what do you have there? You have zones of darkness, thunder, and lightning. Now, that similitude is used by Allah to describe the state of the soul or the person who is caught up in a situation similar described by the physical. Now, if we are caught up during thunder, during rain, thunder, lightning, and you are somewhere out there, not in the house, maybe in the field or something, all right? You try to find a shelter. When you try to get that shelter, there's always that feeling. There's a feeling of fear that the lightning will strike you, but the hope that okay, soon it'll be over. So you have that situation where the soul is, in a sense, symbolizing fear and hope. You are in a state of fear and hope, and the Quran used that similitude to talk about, of course, the state of the soul of the hypocrite. Yeah? The verse refers to that context of the hypocrite. And but the question in generally, the verse 26 I mentioned just now, because there it refers that إن الله لا يستحي أن يضرب مثلا ما بعوضة فما فوقها فأما الذين آمنوا فيعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم. So Allah does not shy from making similitudes of things lowest as well as the highest. But those who believe know that it is the truth. That's it. Those who believe know that it is the truth. Al-Haq min Rabbihim, the truth from their Lord. The word truth now refers to similitude. So I'm saying that now one example in the Quran to talk about the truth of similitude, which is connected to scientific truth, because these are taken from the world of nature. In my writing, I refer to science of symbolism in Islamic science, the role of symbolism. All right. So why the Allah does not shy? It's not shy from making similitudes, because some of the disbelievers, the hypocrites, make fun of it. What? Allah creates a similitude by referring to a fly, the similitude of the fly. All right. You can refer to Surah 22, verse 73, where it's mentioned similitude of the fly. All right. So what I mean, this is just a fly. All right. But the message of the fly, the truth to which it points, is very profound. So in the case of the similitude of the fly is to describe the feebleness of people who commit idolatry. And I produced the translation here. I said, "Oh, humankind." So this is addressed to all men. In other words, this concept of the similitude is not just meant for Muslim. It's meant for the human mind in general, all human mind. Here is a parable set forth. Listen to it. Those on whom besides Allah you call, those on whom besides Allah you call, cannot create even a fly if they all met together. So, in other words, if all the people get together for the purpose to create a fly, they'll never be able to create a fly. So, if the scientists decide to have a conference, a gathering, or something to create a fly to demonstrate art, no, they can't. They can't. But it's only to create a fly. So, and then the verse says, and if the fly should snatch away anything from them, they would have no power to release it from the fly. Yes. While we're having dinner or lunch, and having lunch, suddenly come a fly and snatch something from your plate. Sorry, you can't get it back. You can't get it back. So the Quran says, how feeble, how weak are those who petition and those whom they petition. Right? So it's very powerful, this similitude. Then the next is similitude of the spider. Similitude of the spider. You know what is the genius of the spider in making their web. This is Surah 29, verse 41. Now, the purpose of the similitude is to describe the flimsy of the human system that is based on polytheism. This translation, the parable, the mathalun, the parable of those who take protectors other than Allah is that of the spider who builds to itself a house. But truly, the flimsiest of houses is the spider's web, if they but knew. All right. Now this is the wa in awhana al-buyut, Baitul Ankabut. Baitul Ankabut, there is the flimsiest of houses is the spider's web. Now, after this, just 2 verses ahead of this, this is the message. The Quran emphasizes that only those who have knowledge understand them, meaning both scientific knowledge and symbolic knowledge of the symbol. I spent some time here just now on this. It's very on just the similitude. All right, the truth of the similitude, because in the Quran there are so many similitudes, and this is a source of knowledge in different fields of study. There are similitudes in the human world. There are similitudes from the natural world. I haven't given an example there from the human world, but you can refer for yourself. Now you have done truth as signifying the Quranic revelation, and what is haq? What is the truth? In some contexts, al-haq refers to the Quran itself, the Quranic revelation. Example, Surah Al-Bakar in verse 42. Right. Here, the message is sent to the Jews in particular, the Bani Israel. So the Jews were told not to cover the truth, not to cover. وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقِّ. Do not cover the truth with falsehood. So apparently, some people, I think always at any particular moment, there are always such kind of people who will cover the truth with falsehood. They know the truth, but they want to wrap it, cover it, hide it with falsehood, and not to conceal the truth. Right? Not to conceal the truth. When the Quranic revelation is confirming, so this particular verse just now, the Jews were told not to cover the truth with falsehood and not to conceal the truth. The purpose or the Quranic revelation is confirming God's revealed book to them, and deny it. In other words, it's referring to in particular to the Jews at the time of the Prophet Sallam. In other words, the Jews knew very well what God has given to them in form of the Torah, the Kitab Taurat. So in other words, the kind of revelation experienced by the Prophet was also experienced by Prophet Jesus, and it was meant to them. But they want to hide that. So truth as here, as in other words, truth as signifying the Quranic revelation, the truth of the Quranic revelation, which people should accept. Now another one is truth as signifying right and justice. Right and justice. The phrase used is ghayrul haq. Literally, ghayrul haq means without the truth, in the absence of the truth, contrary to the truth. These are meanings of the phrase ghayrul haq. All right. In this case, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 61, this verse affirms the meaning, but here the God affirms the meaning through its opposite, through its deprivation. This is quite common in the Quran. In other words, God emphasizes certain thing by referring to the opposite of that. So truth referring to the falsehood. All right. So in this case, referring to a haq without the ghayrul haq, meaning without haq. That is without just cause. So that's why I said just now, one verse in the Quran would refer to truth as signifying right and justice. So the Jews were scolded for killing or attempting to kill some of the prophets and messengers without just cause. Ghayrul haq. Then truth also means referring to truth of sacrifice. Truth of sacrifice. Still the same chapter, but verse 71. So the truth of sacrifice here meaning truth of the divine law. The truth of, by extension, it means truth of the divine law or Sharia, or even more generally, practical truth or wisdom. Because Imam Shafi'i, all right, when he said, about the wisdom, when asked about the wisdom what is wisdom, what is hikmah, he said Sharia. In other words, for him, he understood that practical truth of wisdom with the Sharia, because here it's about sacrifice. The Jews, like Muslims, we both have law, Sharia. So the Sharia in question, of course, the Sharia Prophet Moses alayhi salam, and when the Bani Israel were asked to sacrifice the heifer, they asked a lot of questions, all kinds of questions. They asked the Prophet Moses until at last, finally, the final description of the heifer seems to satisfy them. So they said to Moses, "Now you have brought the truth. Now you have brought the truth, or you have come with truth, bil haq." Here is not ghayran. In this case, it's bil haq. In other words, meaning with the truth, or by the truth, or normally we translate as by the truth. So after Prophet Moses told his followers that what the characteristics of the heifer to be sacrificed, then they say the truth has come. All right. Now the other one now, the word haqq meaning the truth of the prophetic mission. So earlier, truth of the Quran. Now the truth of the prophetic mission itself. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 119. There, the purpose of emphasizing the truth there is to emphasize the role, the mission of the Prophet as Bashiran wa Nadhiran. In other words, as bringer of glad tidings and warner of painful consequences in the form of a blazing fire. Next, truth as signifying the right of the revealed book to be studied in the correct manner. This is very, very interesting. this we're talking about the right of the Quran. The Quran has a right over us. Yeah? So I call here truth as signifying the right of the revealed book to be studied in the correct manner. This is verse 1 to 1, same surah. Yeah. Yatlunahu haqqa tilawatihi. It means that the study as it should be studied, meaning that as God's book, the Quran has rights over its readers. It insists on being read and studied correctly. That's why in the Quranic sciences, in the Ulumul Quran, you have branch of the Quran that deals with the adab of reciting and so on. It's just simply to put in general. Somehow the Quran, of course, the Quran is alive. It is not there. You think that the Quran is there, just pieces of paper or on in recordings and so on. No, yeah. How alive the Quran is, that depends on how alive is your spirit, or the spirit, or the soul of the reader. Yeah. A person, a reader with almost a dead soul, we get nothing. We just see a dead Quran, all right? But this is especially because there is a correspondence between the state of the soul of the reader and what the Quran, the state of the Quran, what is prepared to reveal. Right? The Quran is prepared to reveal itself, its true meaning, its content to the reader. But how much is going to reveal, it depends on the state of your mind, state of soul. I think it's a very beautiful idea here. Let's say I put here truth as signifying the right of the revealed book to be studied in the correct manner. Yeah, yatlunahu haqqa tilawatihi. Yeah, as it should be studied. Next, the truth of the new Qibla towards Mecca. The truth of the Qibla. Then this you can find in verses 144 and 149. Now, I mentioned in my previous lecture when I talk about the Ummatan Wasatan, the community, the Wasatiyah community, and I refer to the new Qibla. Okay, the new Qibla. So now the truth of the new Qibla towards Mecca. So the Quran said, the people of the book, Ahlul Kitab, know well that it is the truth from their Lord. So the truth in that sentence, in that verse, referring to the truth of the new Qibla. If you look carefully, if you look at the whole sentence, I'm just taking that fraction. So this is the truth of spiritual history. This is the truth of historical truth. What Muslim interpreters of the Quran have been trying to emphasize, all right? Why the people of the book know well, meaning that the idea of Qibla, to which when we pray in that direction, the Qibla, that's not new. It did not begin with the Prophet Muhammad, all right? It was already with the earlier Prophet, all right? In a sense, if I refer to books by, say, Al-Baidawi, for example, a great mufassir of the Quran, he will refer the previous prophet Abraham, Ismail, and all others. They all pray towards Mecca, all right? But of course, in case the change of the Qibla is from Jerusalem. So in Yusuf Ali's interpretation, he wants to bring up the idea that the Mecca, the choice of Mecca as the new Qibla, in a sense, it is a revival of an old Qibla, but it's a symbol of the perfection of the other Qibla, because now it is the Qibla of a global community. So it's perfection of that idea. So this is about truth. this is about historical truth. There is a lot of things to study about that. Then next, the truth that is being concealed, of course, is the truth of the new Qibla or truth of Muhammad as a prophet in verse 1, 2, 4, 6. All right. The truth that is being concealed here refers to the truth of the new Qibla or the truth of Muhammad as a prophet, because the Jews and other people or other religious communities, they've been told of the coming of the prophet as foretold in other scriptures, but they try to conceal that truth. Next, the truth as divine message, meaning God as the source of the truth, al-haq, and implying that God himself is al-haq. I already discussed that. Now, truth as signifying the Quran as a divine book or sacred scripture. In a sense, it's a repetition of earlier ones signifying the Quran, but when you look at the verse, then you can see more material, you can see more knowledge associated with that. All right. So the emphasis here is that the Quran is sent in truth, bil haq. Many verses in the Quran referring to that the Quran has been sent bil haq, in truth or with the truth. In this particular verse 176, bil haq here as an argument against those who want to find fault in the Quran to show that it is not from God. There are people who argue, no, the Quran is not from God. But now came down revelation, affirmed, no, the Quran is sent bil haq. Yeah. So, well, there are people until now who have a kind of want to find faults with the Quran. At one time, the Orientalists have a project, a scholarly project. The project is just to find faults in the Quran. Yeah? So they have been paid to find faults in the Quran. But then you have another verse said, send in truth, also bil haq, but with the purpose to judge, to be judged in human disputes. The Quran has been sent to be judged in human disputes. So this is an example of social truth. All right. And then in Surah An-Nisa, verse 105, also sent in truth, but here to judge between men based on divine guidance. And another one in the chapter Al-Ma'idah, verse 48, the Quran is the truth and sent in truth. What is the purpose? To conform previous scripture, musaddiqan. Yeah. So, in other words, in this particular verse, the function of the Quran that is emphasized is to confirm previous scriptures and also to guard all scriptures, to be muhaimin, meaning that here the Quran has the right also to interpret scriptures of other religion. So who has the right to interpret the Bible? Well, anybody has the right. Of course, the Christians have the Bible, are interpreting it, but Muslim, or rather by the Quran, as al-muhaiminun, has the right to interpret scriptures and also to guard. To guard means that if the Quran finds something that has not been preserved, and has been changed, then actually the Quran is in a position to discover that, to realize that. And this is the meaning of al-muhaimin, right? The guardian. Now, the other one is meaning duty and obligation. Haq also means duty and obligation, haqqan. Haqqan. So, the example here given in verse 180 is making a wasiyah, will, bequest. This is a social truth. Then, again, the question of truth of Muhammad the Messenger, here emphasizing that he has this particular verse, Surah Al-Imran, the verse 86, all right? The Prophet has been sent with clear signs, al-bayinat. So the truth now applies to that, all right? Then you have also the truth of divine science. Truth of divine science meaning divine science in the universe and in the human world. And then you have this it's very, very interesting. Another instance of how to apply the word ghairul haq without the truth, without truth, absence of truth, contrary to truth. This is Surah Al-Imran, Surah number 3, verse 154. This is about, this particular verse depicts the mind of the person who thinks wrongly of God. And God knows at every moment there are people in whose mind, all right, their mind thinks wrongly of God. They have suspicions of God. Just imagine, and not just suspicion of other people, yeah, suspicion of God. Who imagine of God's plans contrary to the truth. There is one instance of truth. This is truth going into the mind, the state of mind of people that we cannot see, but this is revealed by God. And then the truth of God's promise, because God promised, God made promises, but God never fails in delivering His promise. So that truth of God promise, the promise of paradise, the promise of hell, and so on, all divine promises will come true. Then truth about Allah Himself. I want to spend a little time here. Okay, I promised just now, so I cannot deliver my promise that I'll speak about 1 hour. All right, but this is very, very, very important because now this is the issue now. All right, now this is the truth about Allah, and therefore about His name, about the God's name. Please refer to Surah 4 An-Nisa, verse 171, and I translate here because of it's important. The whole verse. O people of the book, commit no excesses in your religion. No say of Allah aught but the truth. Jesus Christ, the son of Mary, was a messenger of Allah, and His word, kalimatuhu, which He bestowed on Mary, and a spirit proceeding from Him. So believe in Allah and His messengers. Do not say Trinity, Thalatha. Stop it. It will be better for you. For Allah is one God. Glory be to Him. Far exalted is He above having a son. To Him belong all things in the heaven and on earth, and enough is Allah as a disposer of affairs. Not only in this verse, but in other verses of the Quran. The Quran never criticized the Christians for using the word Allah. But the Quran criticized Christians for misusing the word Allah to the point of blasphemy. So there are two different issues, because it conveys two different messages. You cannot use, full stop. Or you can use, but you have obligations, you have commitment. In other words, you first of all do not blaspheme the name, because the name is Allah Himself. All right, the name is the vehicle, of Allah. So here in this verse we have the essence, because it was emphasized here, the essence of truth versus the essence of falsehood. The verse I quoted is truth about Allah, and the content of that verse is basically a contention between two theological positions: essence of truth and the essence of falsehood. And basically, this is also the essence of the theological clash between Islam and Christianity. All right. So, if in Malaysia, say non-Muslims can use the word Allah, in reference to their scriptures and so on. And Muslim have their own narrative of the name Allah, then I see it's inevitable. A theological clash will happen. So are both sides prepared for this theological clash? What it means to both sides? This is a question to be reflected, to be looked upon. In other words, we are now entering the threshold of the theological clash between Islam and Christianity. And what I'm saying here in a few words now, in a sense, tells a little bit about this possible theological clash. Now, the Quran emphasizes that the best truth is truth about Allah, meaning Allah is the unique one, meaning He cannot have a son, meaning God is the owner of all things, implying Jesus belongs to Him, implying Allah is enough as a disposer of affairs, meaning He doesn't need a son. This is in the Quran. As long and it's going to is there to remind everyone, not just Muslims, everyone. That is the position of the Quran. Now, the worst lie or the worst falsehood is the falsehood against Allah. Yes, if the best truth is truth about Allah, so now the worst lie, the worst falsehood against Allah is to say Trinity, or to say He has a son, Allah has a son. Because the Quran emphasizes in that verse the reality about Jesus. Jesus is the son of Mary, therefore He is the son of man, although not human father, but Mary is of the human species. Now, Jesus is the messenger of Allah. Jesus is Allah's word, bestowed on Mary, identified with the common kun that just like, but it's not specific to Jesus. He also said to Adam, Allah said to Adam, kun, and then fayakun, all right? And then Jesus was a spirit from Him, but that is applicable to all human beings. God breathed His spirit into Adam, right? So the point here is the Quran did not criticize the Christians for using the word Allah, but for blasphemy against Allah. Now, I stop there. From now, I want to go to the next thing. Then, of course, you had the truth of the story about Adam's two sons. This in the Surah 5, verse 27. Spiritual history or historical truth is about Abel and Cain, Habil and Kabil. That is about spiritual history. So, in the category of historical truth. Then you have the cosmic truth. This refers to the purpose of the creation of the heavens and the earth, the whole cosmos. In Surah 15, Al-Hijr, verse 85, we created not the heavens, the earth, and all between them, but bil haq. God did not create this, but bil haq, but for just ends. In other words, the cosmos is purposive. It's not without purpose. Contrary to modern science, which instance take out truth from the cosmos. In fact, one of the main currents of philosophy or science in the West is that the universe has no purpose. But the concept of bil haq in the Quran includes the meaning of having a purpose. All right. Now, truth as signifying the Quran. This particular verse basically, truth has not arrived and falsehood perish. For falsehood is by its nature bound to perish. Yeah. And then the another one is question of another meaning here of the truth, haqqul yakin. All right, haqqul yakin, meaning that in fact the translation of the verse, verily this is the very truth and certainty. Yeah, Haqqul Yakin, translated as true certainty or certainty of the truth. Yeah? But the translation of the verse is verily, this is the very truth and certainty. It's interesting that the certainty that was implied by the verse was certainty of the fire. The certainty of the fire. Referring to the absolute truth. Now, since the word Haqqul Yakin is mentioned, there are two other types of Yakin in the Quran, which is Ilmu Yakin and Ainul Yakin. So Haqqul Yakin here is the highest. Sorry, my place now. The weather is not. Can you hear me, Prof?
Yes, Prof. Yes.
All right.
Really.
All right. Yes, Haqqul Yakin, Surah 56, verse 95. The certainty that the verse was talking about was the fire. All right. Just before the verse 95, there's verse 94, referring to the certainty of the fire. And the fire was used as symbol by Al-Ghazali. So Al-Ghazali took from the Quran the symbol of fire in order to explain the difference between Haqqul Yakin and Ainul Yakin and Ilmu Yakin. So Al-Ghazali said the analogy is, all right, seeing the fire. Ainul Yakin is to infer that the fire exists by observing smoke rising. Yeah? Maybe away from from a distance you can see some smoke coming. So as a result of the smoke, you make the inference that there was fire. That is Ilmu Yakin. Ainul Yakin, which is a certainty of here the certainty of by direct observation. Certainty by direct observation, not by reasoning. So you go to the actual spot where you saw the smoke and you actually saw fire, see the fire. That is Ainul Yakin. But now you go to this spot by not just observing the fire, but you go into the fire and burn yourself. And that is the Haqqul Yakin. All right. So here you have, because in sense then the fire being burned in the fire is equated with the absolute truth, because absolute truth, there's no possibility of error of judgment as in the case of reasoning, and no error and no possibility of error of the eye as through observation. So moreover, the following the word, the Allah equates the absolute truth with the divine name. The absolute truth is equated in the Quran with the divine name. And then the following verse says, so celebrate with praises the name of your Lord, the Supreme. All right. And for my last reference to the subject on the truth, the idea of religion of the truth, Dinul Haq. In Surah 9, verse 33, and also in Surah 61, verse 9, the reference to Dinul Haq, religion of the truth, that the Prophet was sent with the religion of the truth. All right, I finished that question of the Islam as the truth. You can infer from my presentation on that how pervasive is the concept of the truth in the Quran, thus justifying the thesis that Islam is the religion of the truth. Now, perhaps I might need another 10 minutes, Professor Imtiaz. I just want to finish the question of justice. Now, the concept of justice in the Quran is also pervasive the triliteral root Ain, Dal, Lam, this Adl occur 28 times in the Quran, not as much as the Haq, truth, 40 times as the verb Adala, and 14 times as the noun Adlun, plural Adala. Now, the root meaning of the word Adala is to act justly, to act equitably, and with fairness, and not to discriminate. That's basically the key meaning of the root word. But the philosophical meaning of the word justice, and here I quote from Professor Said Naqib al-Atas, all right? Quote, justice as a harmonious condition or state of affairs whereby every being is in its right or proper place, such as the cosmos. All right? So that is the meaning of justice. The idea that everything is in its right and proper place. And Al-Atas gave the example of the cosmos. Allah creates the cosmos. He arranged the cosmos. He enters the cosmos. So everything is in the right place. And yes, this is the physical meaning. Or similarly, justice is a state of equilibrium. It's a state of equilibrium, whether it refers to things or living beings. And why all this possible? Whether it's in the cosmos or in the human society, because God is the absolutely just. Al-Adil. Al-Adil, God is absolutely just. Now, all right, since man is created in the image of God, man has the potential to be just. All right. So justice is very important because justice is a core attribute of God. The justice is a core attribute of God, and it is also the core attribute of human beings. So that's very important that man should do justice, or should in a sense make sure that justice prevail in his own being. Now, the Prophet is the perfect model of justice for human beings. And in fact, prophetic justice is a reflection of divine justice on the human plane. But it is very important to remember that justice is closely related to knowledge, closely related to truth, closely related to right. Justice presupposes knowledge. We cannot establish justice without knowledge. Right? An ignorant society cannot establish justice. I repeat, an ignorant society cannot establish justice. Knowledge is equivalent to truth. All right? Knowledge is equivalent to truth. You already saw that. We already saw earlier that knowledge is equivalent to truth. So justice is closely related to truth. Thus, to establish truth and to establish justice must go together. Truth and justice must go together. Without observing and protecting human rights, justice cannot prevail in society. So that's another thing, the connection between justice and human rights. Right? But of course, word of caution, as I have already emphasized, human rights must go together with divine rights. Now, the Islamic concept of justice is very comprehensive because it includes the idea of justice or injustice to oneself. We can do injustice not only to others, but to, in fact, to our own self. So that's why the Quran reminds again and again about not doing injustice to oneself. So the reference there, the emphasis in the Quran is therefore it's not adlun, but rather zulm, in injustice. Just because perhaps By doing that, man is reminded because he is unjust to himself. So the Islamic theory of the soul provides a space for the discussion of how one does injustice to oneself through the concept of the soul, through the concept of the self, all right? Because the self is of various levels, or the soul is of various levels. You have the carnal soul, all right? The passionate soul, the hawa nafsu, the lower self. These are the things that can do injustice to our real self, the real I. Not the false I, but the real I, the real self, which is our spiritual self. Now, the semantic field of the word adlun, justice in the Quran, covers the justice in many aspects. But as my conclusion, I just want to refer you to several of these verses. All right, please refer to Surah 16, verse 90. Say Allah commands justice and the doing of good. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan. So Allah commands justice, and to emphasize the fundamentalness of justice. Surah 4, verse 58. When you judge between man and man, judge with justice. And then Surah 5, verse 8. All right. And here I reproduce the whole verse. O you who believe, because this is addressed to the believers. O you who believe. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, stand out firmly for Allah as witnesses to fair dealing. Yeah, fair dealing here, not bil adli, but bil qisti. There's another word, qistun, referring to justice. So, stand out firmly for Allah as witnesses to fair dealing, and do not let the hatred of others to you make you swerve to wrong or to depart from justice. Be just. Be just. Be just. That's next to piety, next to taqwa, and fear Allah. For Allah is well acquainted with all that you do. Taqwa is the mother of all virtues. Now, for Allah to say that justice is only next to taqwa, it means how very fundamental the standing of justice in our own life. And my final thing, I have referred to it earlier in my previous lectures, but just to remind ourselves that the Sharia in Islam, the position of the Sharia is as a scale of justice. Right? God provided Sharia as a scale of justice for human society. Again, in other words, Sharia is supposed to deliver justice to society. If in the name of the Sharia we produce injustice, then that is not real Sharia. This is very important message for the Muslims in particular. Remember that the spirit of the Sharia is justice. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Jazakallah khair, Professor Osman Bakar. Thank you very much. You have really covered a very vast landscape of discussion on the topics. Just to summarize, you started by talking about haqq as representing the truth, and then you related it with the idea of justice or adl and piety and sharia. So how all these four important concepts of Islam, Islamic of the Quran, about truth, justice, piety, and sharia, or the way of Islamic way of life, are interrelated, and how this understanding of truth and justice is being demoted or relativized by those people whom you described very well as suffering from the philosophical disease of relativism. And that is a very, very catching comment. And you went on to discuss the relationship between truth and knowledge. And you also described about how many times all these terms have appeared in the Quran. And also that the call of the Quran to other religions, especially to the Jews, that not to hide the truth, to come up with the truth, because the truth or haqq as represented by the Quran is confirming the previous presentations of justice, of haqq. And you also touched upon the issue about Allah, which is a very current issue going on in Malaysia, that it should not lead to clash of discussions about the truth. And you finally ended by talking about that absolute truth is a divine name. So with this comments from me, I would like to open it up for questions to the participants here. If anybody has a question, please unmute yourself and raise your question either on Zoom or on Facebook. Welcome. Anybody has a question or a comment to make? Yes, Razi, as usual, Razi goes first. Always has many questions. So Razi, please go ahead.
Yes, actually, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Actually, I was waiting for some other people to start first, but okay, as usual, Prof, very nice discourse and with all the classical knowledge feelings. I have, I think, about 3 questions. Yeah, one is on the word haq as a form of zikr. You know, like in some tariqat, they have this haq. The word haq itself is made as a zikr, like hu and hai. So how does that actually affect in terms of maybe physiology or whatever? There is one question. Second is when you mention the truth of the qiblat in Kaabah, that when Prophet Muhammad was commanded to shift back from Baitul Maqdis to Baitul Haram, I was wondering actually, you know, because before that, of course, when Prophet Abraham built the Kaabah, the qiblat is always there. But when actually was the shift from Kaabah to Baitul Maqdis, and what was the situation? And my third question, this is regarding the event of Isra and Miraj. It is said that on the 7th heaven there is the qiblat and the same as Kaabah of the angels, the Baitul Maqmur, and it is said that it is directly above from the Baitul Haram, the Kaabah, such that if a stone is to be thrown down, it will fall exactly to the Kaabah. How does that relate in terms of actual universe? What is it? Geography and all. That is my 3 questions. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
All right. The first question, that is simple, because Al-Haq is one of the divine names, right? And when you say what's the connection with zikr, what is zikr? All right, zikr is the remembrance of the divine name, but the divine name Allah contains many other names. In fact, the word Allah, the name Allah, contains all the other what we refer to as Al-Asma al-Husna, the beautiful names, right? Contains in the name Allah. So in Sufism, all right, in practical Sufism, all right. So in other words, not only invoking the name Allah, all right, but also in the certain situation, they would name Ar-Rahman or Ar-Rahim or Al-Haq, all right. So that depends. That is situational, all right. But the principle is that. Your second question, you see, that's why my whole, you see, probably my message doesn't, it's not well understood. So when I mention all the different occasions, the different aspects of the truth, all right. In other words, there is only one truth. It's not that in one sense. There is only one Al-Haq, the truth. But in the life of human beings in the world, all right, it's as if that one truth is fragmented into its different components. In a sense, yeah, the single truth manifests itself, all right? The single truth manifests itself in many different ways. What does we have in the Quran? The Quran provides those different circumstances. In the case of the change of the Qibla, since one of the dimensions of that is that God wants to show that the new community, the Ummah of the Prophet Muhammad, when his community already has an identity, its own distinct identity. The Prophet cannot show that in Mecca because he and his followers were not yet a community. When they went to Medina, not immediately, it's only 1 year later when this change of Qibla, more than 1 year later, when the followers already form themselves into a well-knit, tight-knit community and ummah that is its own identity. It's time now. See, God says, God is telling him, now is the time I'm creating you as a distinct ummah, as the ummatan wasatan. That's why the change of Qibla and the ummatan wasatan are mentioned in the two verses together. All right. Now the other one, of course, has something to do with the symbolism of the Kaaba. All right. In other words, if we can see, we cannot see with it's not physical. This is intellectual. This is spiritual. All right. While, because what is the position of Mecca? What is the position of the Kaaba? The Kaaba is the exact center of the earth. Is the exact center. If you want to know where is the exact center, well, of course, there's a Muslim belief. The exact spot where the Kaaba is situated, that is the center of the world. All right. Now, believers do tawaf, circumambulate, all right, round the Kaaba in an anti-clockwise way. All right, anti-clockwise way, not clockwise, anti-clockwise. In the same way that the angels in the angelic world also circumambulating around another kind of Kaaba in the spiritual world. All right, so that's the reason. There's the connection, and of course there's another Kaaba in our own heart, right? Our own heart has a Kaaba. I only hope that the idols are not the idols are not around the Kaaba in our heart. No, you should get rid of all the idols in the Kaaba inside our heart. Okay,
any other question? Anybody?
May I just back to question two?
I should give to somebody. Give somebody else.
The question two, because I've heard that one from your another lecture. I've understand that the need to change the Qibla. What I asked is actually when, after the time of Prophet Abraham, did the Qibla shifted from Mecca to Baitul Maqdis, and what was the situation at that time? That was my actual question.
Well, that is God's. I mean, God has the reason, yeah, and that. Especially when the Prophet's Abraham's family broke up into two, one into Bani Israel, the other one into the followers of Prophet Ismail, and the Arabs, basically, right? So the Abraham's family broke up into two streams, the Arab stream and the Jewish family, right? And both are Semitics. Both the Arabs and the Jews, because of that, are Semitic people. So it would be wrong for some people, if only the Jews, if people are anti-Jews, anti-Semitic, but you can criticize the Arabs, okay, but that's not anti-Semitic. To be anti-Semitic must be to anti both the Arabs and the Jews. Otherwise, you don't call it anti-Semitism. because both are Semitics. Because they are the descendants of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Yeah, the question how later I'm not in a position, and but according to Al-Baidawi said all prophets have prayed in the direction of Makkah.
Any other one has a question or comment to make? Yes, Sharon.
Assalamualaikum, Prof. I don't
Yes.
intend to put you in difficult spot, but how positively we can take the issue of this kalimah Allah? What is your solution? Anything that we can do? This issue of kalimah Allah. Now,
I already mentioned.
I already mentioned, but you what is the solution to move forward? Like more interfaith or more working together? I'm asking positively. I'm not.
Well, actually, there are people who are requesting me to talk about the subject, but I said I prefer to write about this because to talk like this, can easily people misunderstand. I'm not in a position to write well, to say it well, but I want to write it. But the point is, the first thing I said, the Quran does not criticize Christian for using the word Allah, but the Quran criticized them for blasphemy against the name, and that is the topic for dialogue about that.
Yeah.
All right. Because it's clear. You refer to the verse that I quoted. All right. Because two positions are mentioned there: the Christian position and the God's own position. Okay, but I don't want to talk about this as particular issue now. All right. Because
we look forward for your writing, Prof. We look forward for your writing.
Yes, I think I'm writing a book about the name now.
Inshallah.
But the only thing, this is a kind of joke. All right, say now the Christians in Malaysia are able to use the name. I saw now they have whole special sessions to devote the name Allah. All right.
Okay. Brother.
Why not have the Muslims get together with the Christians and say let us have a special session. With the whole session we only invoke the name Allah, 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 Allah. Very wonderful.
Yes, Malik, you can have a question, please. Go ahead, Malik.
Am I not allowed to remark?
You can. Yeah, you can make your phrase.
It's very difficult to answer his question. Okay.
Bismillah. I'm not passing a fatwa or anything like that, but I just find the whole situation, the whole issue of the use of the name Allah or the debate in it about it. And this is not the first time I've heard about it. Actually, it happened somewhere else before. But I find it from the Muslim point of view. I find the Muslims the response is a very insecure response. A very insecure response. To be honest with you, yes, the word is important. The word is important in so much as we are Muslims and we understand what it means. Okay. For the others, it's not about the actual the loves, the word, the utterance. It is about the meaning also. It is about the meaning. It's about the significance that it has to the people who are actually saying it. You see, I think it's without making the issue a big issue, it's a step in the right direction. They can have the debate after over its meanings. But I think the Muslims, and this is the issue. Although it's this is an issue of one of many issues that will come up very soon, because Allah knows best. I think the whole world is moving towards a sort of a kind of a global unification in spirit or in essence, in somewhere, but it will take a long way. So this is one of many issues, and I just think that we need to approach it very sensitively and not make a big fuss over it at all. Allah knows best, you know.
Well, to me, I only look from the viewpoint of the Quran. That's all. I don't want to say something that is contrary to the position of the Quran. All right, it's not my business about the politicians, no. I think just say what the Quran is
Professor,
the name, yeah.
Professor, the Quran just lays a claim that they said that Allah is. That's what they said.
No.
Yeah.
Brother, I mean, that's why when we want to deal with this issue, it's not enough just to look for this verse, that verse, and then it's not the solution is not piecemeal. It's not by trying to find verses. We understand the spirit of the whole Quran. What is the spirit of the whole Quran? The spirit of the Quran is to invite everyone to Allah. All right? And I would want to say invite to Islam, invite to Allah. Because some people, including Muslims, Islam is more important than Allah. Right?
Yeah.
No? Yeah. Allah, invite to Allah. Because there are verses in the Quran, invite to Allah. Now, can you imagine you want to invite someone to Allah, and then that person, and then the person who comes to you want to find out about Allah? No, you cannot use to Allah because you are not Muslim. You are inviting him to Allah. I know the concern is legitimate, but the answer is wrong. This is problem sometimes. This is problem of many things in Muslim. All right, the concern is genuine, but the solution is wrong. The concern that the divine name will be abused is there. All right, but the solution is not by preventing people from using the name, but by asking them to use the name correctly. Explain the meaning, what the meaning of the divine name, what it means in our mind, our thinking, in our spiritual life, for example.
Yeah.
I think that's it. The issue now is simple. Are we talking things rightly or wrongly about God? That is the issue. Not a question of whether you can use or not the name. There's no.
Very well said. Yeah, very well said, Professor Osman Bakar, that we have to go at the level of meta-religion, overcome the parochial understanding of Allah, and understand it universally. Brother Sharan, you made a comment, you sent a comment to me last time. What did Professor Ayub say about this? Can you repeat that, please?
Oh, yes. Prof. Ayub mentioned a long time ago when this issue said, if people want to mention Allah 1,000,000 times, you should be happy. It's a blessing. Why you are making a fuss?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your comment and sharing that with us. That is a wise comment. So, Professor Osman, you want to make some last any comments before
my last thing, because since we are dealing with academics, Now, we are really concerned. We are really concerned that in the world of academic or scholarship nowadays, the word truth is marginalized or entirely forgotten. It's no longer the business of the academics, right? This is contrary to the position of Islam. Is to establish the truth. Of course, the truth takes many forms. For example, historical truth. There are such a thing as historical truth. So are we approaching the study of history with the view of discovering this historical truth or not? The word scientific truth has long gone away. All right? Before, scientists study the natural phenomena because they want to discover scientific truth. But now say no, the truth it's not the job of science, not the task of science. It's all against the Islamic epistemology. So We need to study, in other words, all the academic disciplines exist for the sake of discovering the truth. Metaphysical truth, physical truth, mathematical truth, psychological truth, historical truth, sociological truth, and so on. Even mathematical truth. I'm trained as a mathematician. All right, I know. Right, we have always been reminded about mathematical truth. So we live in the world at time when the word truth has been abandoned by so many people. It is our task, and it is the duty of those who believe in the truth, in truth to present, to come and, in other words, knowledge from this perspective. I think that's my my appeal to the students, to academics. Inshallah.
Okay. Thank you very much.